Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Today lecture is the continuation of the physiology of gastrointestinal tract, but today we are going to discuss about the accessory glands which are involved in digestive activity. Actually, in the previous lectures we have covered about all the organs which are the basic component of the digestive system, which do take part in the digestive activity, and the process of digestion do take place step by step in each and every organ. So the accessory glands are basically not are not considered as the direct part of the digestive system, but they do aid the process of digestive activity by secreting some sort of like secretions or the hormone which do aid the digestive activity. So pancreas is one of them, and pancreas mainly consists of a exocrine gland. As we have learned in the endocrinology that and there are two type of glands in our body. One is endocrine gland and other is the exocrine gland. So endocrine glands release the chemical substances directly into the bloodstream or the tissue of the body, and the chemical substances which are released by the endocrine glands are known as hormone, and the exocrine glands release the chemical substances through the ducts to outside the body or onto another surface within the body. So what you have to do is to write down three differences between exocrine and endocrine gland, and do write two example as well. Okay, this would be included in your assignment. So pancreas is one of the exocrine gland that secrete enzymes to aid the digestion in the small intestine. Pancreatic exocrine secretion is hormonally regulated, and it's the same hormone that encourages the secretion of cholecytokinin, which also encourages the discharge of gallbladder, and gallbladder's store of bile. Bile is essentially an emulsifying agent. It makes the fats water soluble and give the pancreatic enzyme lot of surface area to work on. And about 1500 ml of pancreatic juice is secreted per day. Bile and intestinal juices are also neutral or alkaline, and these secretions neutralize the gastric acid that we have already learned in the section of stomach, which do raise the pH of the duodenal content to 6 to 7 by the time the chyme reaches the duodenum, and its pH is nearly neutral. Here we come up with the function of pancreas. Actually, pancreas has got the both the type of cells, the exocrine cells and the endocrine cells. As we already know that the exocrine cells to produce their secretions which travel with the help of some sort of duct or a tubular structure from one part to another part or to the other tissues, and in endocrine cells they directly secrete the secretions into the bloodstream. So exocrine cells of pancreas do produce the secretion which is known as pancreatic juice, and this pancreatic juice travel to the pancreatic through the pancreatic duct to the duodenum, where it does take part in a digestive activity. And the endocrine cells of the pancreas are arranged, have got a specific sort of arrangement. That arrangement or the clusters of cell is known as aisles of Langerhans, and these aisles of Langerhans do produce the two type of hormone, insulin and the glucagon, which do act in the when there is fluctuation of the blood sugar level in our body, and these hormone also help to control the level of sugar or the glucose in the blood. So when does insulin work? Insulin actually lowers the amount of sugar in our blood when there is a high level of sugar in our blood, and we do need it to bring to the normal level, and there the insulin works, and it lowers the amount of sugar in our blood. When the blood sugar is high, it stimulates the liver, muscles and the fatty tissues to absorb and store the extra sugar from the blood. And glucagon increase the amount of sugar in the blood. When the blood sugar is low, it stimulates the liver and other body tissue to release to release the stored sugar into the blood. So what you have to do here is you need to find the normal blood sugar level, and when do we measure it? Like we have commonly heard that in case of diabetic patient, you need to find the normal range of blood sugar level, and just jot down its numerical figure. Okay, So here we'll study about the pancreatic secretions, that how the pancreatic secretions are released, how they do take part in digestive activity after their release, where do they go, and how do they work over there. So in the duodenum, the low pH stimulates the release of secretin, and the fats peptides stimulate the release of cholecytokinin. Secretin further stimulate the duct cells to secrete the bicarbonates, and cholecytokinin stimulate the Eckner cells to secrete the digestive enzyme. It will be part of your home assignment that you need to get information about the Eckner cells. Do write about Eckner cells and their functions in the pancreas. And the digestive enzyme include the protease, pancreatic lipase, and pancreatic amylase. Now you must know that protease act on which component of the food. Lipase act on lipase. Basically, all of these are the enzymes which do act on the different components of the food. You must know that protease act on which component of the food. Similarly, the lipase and amylase. It's also the part of your assignment. And the bicarbonates include the hydrogen carbonate and the water. Okay, so here we come with the diagrammatic representation of the pancreas. So what we have to do with the diagram is the same thing that we usually do with the diagrams, that you need to draw a very neat and clean diagram. Then you will label it, and the parts, like the number of parts that you are going to label on the diagram, you must know their function, okay, as we have done in the previous diagrams. Here we come with another accessory organ which is involved in the digestive activity, and that's the liver. So the liver has multiple function, but its main function within the digestive system is to process the nutrients which is absorbed from the small intestine, okay. And bile from the liver secreted into the small intestine also plays an important role in digesting fats. In addition, the liver is the body's chemical factory. The liver also detoxifies the potentially harmful chemical. It metabolizes many drugs into active and inactive form. That's why it's known as chemical factory. Bile is a complex fluid containing water, electrolyte, and the bit of the organic and molecules, including the bile acid, phospholipids, and bilirubin that flows through the biliary duct into the small intestine. You must know about the composition of the bile, and its excretion as well. There are two fundamentally important functions of the bile in all the species, or especially in the human. Bile contain the bile acids, which are critical for digestion and absorption of the fats and the fat soluble vitamins in the small intestine. Basically, it's working on the fatty content of the food. And the many waste products, which include the bilirubin, are eliminated from the body by excretion into the bile and elimination into the feces. And the liver is divided into two sections, the right lobe and the left lobe. If you would have ever seen the diagram of the or the diagrammatic representation of the liver, there you can easily appreciate about the two lobes of the liver. Both the lobes are made up of cells which are called the hepatocytes, and these cells produce the bile and which secrete into the bile ducts, which carry bile to the gallbladder, where it's stored until it's used by the small intestine for the further digestive activity. It's kept stored over there. Here we come with the gallbladder. It's a small pear-shaped organ to the right side of the body under the right lobe of the liver. The body can function without the gallbladder. Sometimes some people have got the gallstones or inflammation of the gallbladder, and it's removed. So body can go very properly even without the gallbladder. The gallbladder stores and concentrate bile, and bile is a yellowish green fluid which is made by the liver, and bile help the body to digest the fats, and it's mainly made up of bile salts, bile pigments such as bilirubin, which is considered as the waste which is excreted out from the body through the feces, and cholesterol for the production of the bile acids and the water. These are the four basic components of the bile. And the liver release the bile into the hepatic duct. Hepatic duct is a duct which is actually coming from the liver. If the bile is not needed for digestion, it flows into the cystic duct and then into the gallbladder, where it is stored. As we have learned in the previous slide, that if it's not like actively taking part in the digestive activity, it's kept stored over there. So the gallbladder can store about 40 to 70 ml, or like 8 to 14 teaspoons of bile over there, until and unless it is being used or it is being processed for the digestive activity. So the gallbladder absorb water from the bile, making it more concentrated. When bile is needed for digestion after a meal, definitely bile is required immediately after the intaking of any food. The gallbladder contract and release it into the cystic duct. The bile then flows into the common duct and is emptied into the small intestine, where it breaks down the fatty content of the food. There it goes for the proper functional activity. Here we come with the pathophysiology of gastrointestinal tract, where we'll like just come to know about the different pathologies or the diseases of the digestive system. And gastrointestinal diseases most often present with one or more of the four common classes of symptoms and signs. Like these symptoms and signs to help us to appreciate the different kind of like pathologies of the gastrointestinal tract. So it can be the abdominal pain or the chest pain, and the altered ingestion of the food like anorexia, which is considered as the loss of appetite, and the altered bowel movement like diarrhea or the constipation. And if the diarrhea or the constipation do exist for a long period of time with the multiple episodes, it can it can give us idea about the some sort of pathology, and will be able to decide about the pathology after having different associated investigations about that. And the GI tract bleeding, which can be considered as a different form of ulcers. So the different type of pathology in complete digestive system is determined or differentiated by anatomical region in which they occur, and that include the oral cavity, esophagus and stomach, small intestine, large intestine and colon, and the accessory glands, which include the pancreas and the liver. So it's all about the like the prominent features to appreciate about the diseases or the pathology of the gastrointestinal tract. Okay, so here we'll discuss about the pathology which are the pathologies which are associated with the oral cavity, and that can be salivary gland secretions, which is usually 1 to 1.5 liter per day. And in case of any pathology, it can be increased or decreased, like the normal production or the daily production of the salivary gland secretions can be vary, and this can happen due to like inflammation like tonsillitis. And in case of tonsillitis, it's usually increase, and xerostostomy, which is due to the dehydration and drugs, and abnormal chewing, and the painful mandibular joint, and injury of the tongue, painful teeth, infections, and a herpetic, which is the herpetic virus, and the bacterial candidiasis, which occur in case of compromised immune system, and diseases of the mandibular joint, which results in very severe sort of pain and dislocation, and tumor of the oral cavity as well, and leukoplegia and carcinoma. So here we are coming with a list of some terms with which you aren't familiar with. That what you have to do with this slide is to just find out those terms with which you aren't familiar. Before that, just write them down and find the like find some definition or 1 to 2 sentences about that, and write them. Take that as a part of your home assignment as well. Okay, so here we come with the pathology of the esophagus and stomach, and it's the hiatal hernia. With the hiatal hernias, stomach digest fluids are trapped in the hyalinated portion and are continuously exposed to the esophageal lining. Now, what the hernia? Actually, hernia is a pathological state in which there is the abnormal existence of the tissue or the organ, such as in the bile through the wall of the cavity in which it normally resides. And hernias come in a number of types, and most commonly they involve the abdomen. Basically, hernias are caused by the combination of the pressure or an opening or the weakness of the muscles or the fascia at a specific place, and the pressure pushes an organ or the tissues through the opening or the weak spot. So it's basically the weakening of the tissues or the fascia at that particular place where the organs or the tissues aren't able to perform its physiological function. So the esophagus does not have the extensive mucus secretions that protect the stomach lining and is subject to enzymatic aeration with the resultant inflammation, which is known as esophagitis, and this results in the GERD, which is known as gastroesophageal reflux disease. And next we come with the gastritis. In gastritis, the stomach lining is subject to inflammation, which is known as gastritis, from a variety of sources, ranges from a microbial infection to a alcohol abuse as well. So it's all about your eating habit. A common cause of gastritis relate to excessive acid ingestion, particularly the salicylic acid or the aspirin. You know, when there is excessive intake of the aspirin or such drugs such as alcohol is taken, it directly affect the gastric lining. And there we next we come with the ulcers, which is the chronic inflammation of the stomach lining can lead to the ulceration, but ulcers are more common in either the duodenum or in the esophagus. Actually, the ulcerations of esophagus or the stomach and duodenum were thought to be the result of excessive stomach acid secretions. Like all the ulceration of esophagus, stomach, and duodenum, thrice of these ulcers were considered as the result of excessive stomach secretions, as we have already learned that the stomach juices have got very intense, acidity or a very intense capacity or ability to harm the tissues, so which exceed the protective capacity of the mucus. Now many of these ulcers are known to have as a bacterial causes as well. Now not all the ulcers are thought to be caused by the gastric juices only. There are some bacterial causes as well, which can also like harm or erode the lining of the esophagus, stomach, or the duodenum, which result in formation of the various like chronic or acute type of ulcers. Gastritis is the irritation and inflammation of the stomach lining. This means the lining is the inflammation means it's the sign of inflammation that the tissue becomes swollen, red, and eroded, painful like that. And in case of gastritis, our stomach lining just become reddish in color, and it swollen as well. And ulcer is an open sore in the lining of the stomach. It may also occur in duodenum as well. Okay, so here we'll discuss about the pathology of small intestine. First, we come with the enteritis. Certain foods or the drugs, alcohol, or even the microbial agents can inflame any region of the small intestine, resulting in enteritis. Then we come with diarrhea. Diarrhea is actually the inflammation of the small intestine, results in an increase in motility, causing the material to move that portion of the GIT tract or the small intestine too rapidly for a proper absorption, like for the proper absorption of the food content from the food which is being taken and digested up till here or the small intestine. Since much of the water from the intestinal content is absorbed in the small intestine, so definitely when there will be inappropriate absorption of the foodie content will be take place here, so it can lead to a dehydration and pH imbalances as well. Then we come with the constipation. It occurs when the colon absorbs too much water, or if the muscles in the colon are contracting slowly or poorly, so that the stool moves too slowly and loses more water. It is well known that the people whose diet include a good quantity of the fiber are significantly less likely to suffer from constipation. So, the appropriate quantity of the fibery content of the food is like beneficial for the proper absorption of the food content from the large intestine. Then we come with the inguinal hernia. It's the a part of intestine that protrude to the weakened abdominal wall. As we have already learned that hernia is actually the is actually a situation or a pathology where there is the wall, where there is weakening of the wall or the tissues take place at that part, and it protrude or projects from that area, and it obstruct the bowel, which can occlude the blood supply as well to the herniated portion, and resulting in death of the portion of the intestine. Next we come with the vomiting. There's the forceful expulsion of the content from stomach and intestine to get rid of the substances or pathogens or intoxicated liquid. This expulsion act as a defensive mechanism. Okay, here we do come with a Bristol stool chart or a Bristol stool classification of the stool. There are 7 types of the stool according to their you can say the presentation. So in type 1, the stool material is like it's a separate and hard lumps, and it does happen in a very constipated form. Similarly, we will go with the different type, like lumpy and sausage like is the slightly constipated sausage shape with the cracks in the surface is the normal. And in the fourth type is it's like a smooth soft sausage or like snake type presentation. It's also occur in a normal situation. Then we come with the type 5, which includes the soft balls with clear cut edges. It does occur in case when there is a very lack of fibery content in our food. And type 6, it's the mushy consistency with ragged edges, which happen usually in case of inflammation. And type 7 is a liquid consistency with no solid pieces. It occur in case of inflammation, or you can say diarrhea as well. Okay, so here we'll discuss about the pathology of the accessory glands. So the liver, the pathology or the disease form of liver can be hepatitis, which is the inflammation of liver. Then we come with cirrhosis. Cirrhosis is a condition in which the liver does not function properly due to long-term damage of the liver tissues. And then we come with the spleen. It can be splenomegaly, which is the enlargement of the spleen, and pancreas, which can suffer from pancreatitis, and pancreatitis is the inflammation of pancreas.